time.
All right, good evening. This is the February 10th meeting of the Charter Committee. Tonight, we're going to continue with our document work, specifically talking some more about elected and appointed boards. And then we have spend some time on, we got a public information session coming up in a couple of weeks. And we're going to spend some time going through those materials and content, because it's important for where we are and what we're telling people. All righty. In front of you, we printed off, this was way back in the day when we first started doing this. The Collins folks gave us this framework for elected versus appointed boards. So this is basically a refresher for us to look at. I would say it doesn't necessarily what we have to use, but these are things we can consider what we want to use if we want to go through and look at these, if it helps in terms of this decision we're going to make. Now, I assume what we're really talking about tonight are Park and Rec, Board of Health, and Town Clerk. Anybody else have anything else that we want to consider, or are those really the main ones? I also have, we can pursue some more, but I also have, again, Karen's information that she had for the public information session is actually helpful, because she's got a list in here of all the elected boards in town. You want me to read them off?
Sure.
Does that help? Select Board, Planning Board, which we're not changing those, right? Electric Light, School Committee, Water Commission, Library Trustees. Then we get to Park and Rec, Board of Health, Cemetery, Town Clerk, not a board, but elected, Town Moderator, Trust Fund Commission, Board of Assessors, and Housing Authority. So from my standpoint, again, we're not, the ones we decided to change were the Trust Fund Commissioners and the Board of Assessors and the Cemetery. People in agreement on that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then in the Housing Authority, it says on her original one, it says appointed, but we're not changing anything there. I don't think we can anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So again, to me, the ones in play are Park and Rec, Board of Health, and the Town Clerk. Anybody have any? Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Charlotte, you there? Yes, you're there. Great. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person.
No, it's okay. Glad you're with us.
Betsy, would it be worthwhile sharing the perspective of the select board last night around our work on this topic?
Yes.
Because I know Rob took notes. You were talking, so I took some notes, and they said some, I think, very good, some helpful things.
Right. Do you want to share what you remember?
I can see if I
If you don't
can
mind.
read my handwriting.
If not, I don't know what we're going to do, but.
Number one, the sooner you can get something to this select board to look at, the better.
Okay, so let's take a step back from that. So not related to this, just in general, the process we talked about with the select board. And whether or not, because Joe and I had our biweekly meeting with the Collins folks, and we were asking about doing this, having this meeting with the select board to discuss it. And he said, well, normally that's done when we're done. We have our document done, and then we hand it over, and then you'd have a meeting. We said, well, we'd like to do it sooner and have some of that feedback, and the select board definitely wanted to do it sooner. So that's where that's coming from, just.
And, yeah, I want to ask you questions about your recommendations, right? The gentleman sitting in this chair, he said.
Matthew, that was Matthew Nordhaus.
He effectively said, after you give this to us, I can't not imagine not asking you questions about this. So I want to have an interface between your committee and the board in some way. As to, do we give them, what did you call it last night, ideal state, or do we give realistic state to them? Do we factor into our recommendations not only what makes operational sense, but do we take into consideration like cultural factors? The acceptability of it in this day and time, the possibility that we put something forward that will sink the whole ship? And they said, no, you come at us with your best recommendation, and if there's not a consensus among you, say so. If there's a meaningful difference of opinion amongst the committee or a committee member who disagrees vehemently, say so. The recommendation of the committee is this. It was somebody, I think, actually said, and if it's unanimous, say that it was unanimous. Tell us that. So that, if you see things that are top priority that you believe are essential to get through, they talked about, you don't have to swallow this whole pill all at once. We could do it, part of it this time, we could do it and then down the road, whatever. We could take bites at this apple. And somebody said, if you see things that are top priority, perhaps say that that's a top priority, and others, if they're not a top priority in round one or whatever, in version 1.0, somebody called it, let us know that. You know, that this is really important. We think this ought to go through. Give the document. Someone suggested, I would like to have this document for a month. So I can review and digest it, and then convene with you in some way, shape, or form to ask you questions. We don't have to execute on all of your recommendations all at once. There can be Charter 1.0 and Charter 2.0. You all should think big. Those are my notes.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. Maybe the one other part that I heard one select board member mentioned, I thought it was acknowledged, if not directly agreed to by two others, was the concept of breaking out, once they receive it from us, into non-quorum working groups to take it the rest of the way. Specifically identified was potentially 2 people from each group to do the wordsmithing and the finalization. That I believe was said, and I see Kevin agreeing.
It was.
Yeah. The part that I don't think was said, but I just want to share with you that that statement and 2 others seemingly acknowledging and agreeing with it made me think, I'm not so certain things like transition or general policies, general provisions, I almost think they said so strongly to get it to them sooner than later that those matters are more or less, how many things do you want in general, provisions? Because I've read numerous charters. Some of them go on for pages and some of them are rather tight. I'm not sure that it's worthy of a delay of a month or so just for us to fine tune that list.
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah,
No,
so-
I agree with you.
So
thank you. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm that's the only comment that I'd add in addition to what I heard
Okay.
Kevin say.
No, I think that once we get through this tonight, that whatever that is, we hand it to them, and that it is what it is. It's a draft, and that's what we have for a public forum and everything else too. That's where we are. So the other thing is that I followed up with Mark Rombacher was the one who first said the thing about the having smaller groups.
Yes.
Because for the wordsmithing, I'm fine, but I think we can still, and we should still have a big forum where we're all together to talk about it. And then, when you get to the wordsmithing, then we need to break down to smaller. But there's no reason why this can't be a whole thing, and it should be the initial back and forth, I think, the whole team, because I want our whole team there when they're asking questions, honestly, the high-level questions.
Absolutely.
I
When we
agree.
get down to the wordsmithing, then that makes
Yeah,
more sense.
I agree with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great.
I would say my primary takeaway from last night was dream big, do what you think matters, do what you think you're charged by the charter charge, and let the select board deal with the politics.
Yeah.
So I think we've been doing that for the most part, but I think I do think that we've been perhaps overly sensitive to the way things have been and not what we're charged to do. And I think the select board last night basically said, let us worry about the feelings and the politics and the personalities. You go not to the line, maybe even go farther than the line, and we'll pull it back to where we think is acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we heard.
Excuse me.
This is the first. This is going to be our first charter. We can fix it in year 3, 5, 10, whatever. But go all out with your recommendations and let us pull it back. That's how I interpreted what.
That's what I heard too.
And as to
Absolutely.
that point, one select board member said, we can't go further than what you recommend. We can pull back,
Yep.
but we cannot. So you ought to go as far, you ought to be daring, and we'll pull the reins in. We can't go beyond
That's an interesting.
It is a very interesting point. Very.
Yep. It made it a lot easier
All
for
accurate.
us, but-
Yeah, completely agree with what you just said.
So, good
So it was a good,
setup for our discussion about
I think
some-
so, and thank you for
Yeah.
going into that. I should have done that before, right. Yeah, so, okay, so then let's go back to where we were, because you're right, that was more important. We should have done that first. So that's where we are. So now we're back to basically the ones in play, Park and Rec, Board of Health, and Town Clerk. Appointed versus elected, and we've gone back and forth, and all the pluses and minuses, and we've also said, not like it's right or wrong, it's where we want to go, and I think, but now we've got a different setting, which I think is, from my standpoint, is going to make it easier for us, but let's see where everybody is. How do you want it? You want to go, talk about these criteria a little bit, Kevin? You want to talk about these a little bit at this point, or do you think it's necessary?
No.
Okay.
Can we take a minute to read?
Absolutely, yeah, go right ahead. So again, what we're looking at is, when we first, earlier on, Collins gave us a framework for criteria for elected boards versus appointed boards for the people at home while you guys are reading. It's been a while since we looked at this. And so we're just kind of reviewing that. So things like, if the elections are rarely contested, then that's kind of a flag that maybe that should be an appointed position anyway. Because you're not getting the value that you get out of an elected position. If they're not contesting it, then you're not getting some of the things that you would get out of having an elected position. If it's policy making, it's more likely to be elected versus appointed. If it's something that requires a specific expertise, then it should probably be appointed rather than elected. Again, according to their criteria, we can use whatever criteria they want. These are just some of the things that other people have done. Some other interesting things, like, is it something that, if you can, a role where you can just get elected and you're into it, and relatively quickly you can be up to speed on what you need to do. Is it understood by the public? Are they voting for something that you even understand what the job is? Those are the kind of things. Okay.
One of the things that's going to influence my comments tonight will be not tying the hands of the select board or this town with respect to who moves into important roles for this town. And what do I mean by that? I think elections, I've heard some stories or scenarios where could I use the term perverse outcomes can occur? And I don't think elections, especially for boards where expertise is needed, contribute to the best possible outcome necessarily. I am going to lobby for discretion. And I believe discretion comes in the form of appointment. By who? I don't know. We can talk about it by who. But I believe that there is a measure of discretion and flexibility that comes with appointment that is absent with an election. So that's one premise that I'll be thinking about tonight.
Okay. Anything you want to say? I have something, but go ahead. Kyle, you ready?
So when I think about appointed versus elected, the two things that stood out were, does this position do a lot of policy making or very minimal policy making, and does it require expertise or experience in the field? And as I read through this, one of the things that I didn't pick up in the past was the recommendation for an appointed position. It says it is critical to the effective and efficient functioning of the government for this position or board to cooperate regularly with other officials. And I think about that mostly about the town clerk position, because the town clerk is critical for the effective operation of the town government. And the town clerk works with, I have to assume, multiple other government officials within Littleton. And I guess where I'm going with that is that perhaps I'm torn on the town clerk, mostly because of the town clerk's involvement with elections, and, you know, the public instilling their trust in the town clerk. But then I think about it requires expertise. And I think about how we heard from the town clerk about her predecessor, who has been trained for months. And to me, that tells me that, oh, this position does require expertise, because if it didn't require expertise, why would you be training your predecessor for months, assuming that this person would take the position? But if it's an elected position, that's not guaranteed. I could run for town clerk. So I guess I'm really thinking out loud here, but to me, that seems like perhaps it should be an appointed position. And only my opinion, not speaking of, but yeah, if our current town clerk, I seem to recall, felt very strongly about her predecessor and the amount of training this person had gone through. And again, that just speaks to me that, at least when I look at these positions, I really want to focus on, does it require expertise? Does it require training? And some of the things that I've heard throughout this process over the last roughly year is sometimes elected positions, they're elected by write-in, they're elected by a minimal amount of votes. And I don't know that that really serves the government of Littleton to the letter of what I'm reading before me about requiring expertise, working with town government, working with multiple bodies within the government. So I guess I just wanted to say that out loud as I read through this. I think about, like, Parks and Rec and the other boards. I feel like the town clerk is really the most perhaps controversial one that we may consider moving from elected to appointed, from my perspective. So that's all. I just wanted to provide that comment, my thoughts
Okay.
on the
I
record.
definitely appreciate everything you just said. And I go back, and of course, I've been doing this for a long time. I made a big statement 20 years ago that I always had all the things that might be appointed or might be changed. The one thing I don't want to see be appointed was the town clerk, because I think the town people want to have the opportunity to put that person in office so they can go down and talk to that person and feel comfortable with it. And I think it's almost like a separation of powers. The other boards, I can consider any of them being appointed besides what I consider the select board and the planning board, because those are true policy-making boards. But going back to the town clerk, I still understand, and whoever it is right now, Diane, who has direct things from the state she has to do. I understand that, but my deep feeling still to this day is that that's the one thing that I'd like to see stay elected, so that people have a voice and who's in that office, and that's just my opinion.
And I appreciate. I mean, it was just my opinion as well.
No, I was saying that, but at the same time, I just can't.
No, it is a very difficult thing to kind of wrestle with mentally, because, the town clerk, like you said, I mean, I've talked to Diane multiple times as a citizen of Littleton, not a member of the charter committee, and she's wonderful. And I think that last night I heard, remove the personality, remove the person, and think about the position, and think about the government. And I'm not sold one way or the other. I'm really just voicing how I'm thinking through this. And I do think that on the other side of that, if we move the town clerk from elected to appointed, that does remove some public trust. I mean, I could see that as, if I weren't sitting on this committee and I didn't know what I know just based on the last year of being on this committee, I would absolutely, as a citizen of Littleton, say, what are they doing? What are they recommending? But then I think about what I heard last night about dream big. Let us pull it back. You go to the extent of what you think, and let the select board pull it back. So from what I heard, maybe I'm being a little bold or perhaps a little brash, but I'm
Oh, be brash, Pyle. Go ahead.
but But I'm trying to think through this as, if I read through this by the letter of people that are a lot smarter than me, and I think about the most controversial position that we might consider going from elected to appointed, because I always want to go with the hardest one first. Those are my thoughts on the clerk.
I have a couple thoughts on that. Anybody else want to talk about the clerk specifically?
Go ahead, and then I'll jump in.
Well, one of I guess the main thing to me, I remember Diane was adamant about, it needs to be somebody who lives in Littleton, you know, and if they're appointed, they don't have to be. But in the charter, we can say that they have to be. And so I think that we should, if we do go to appointed there, we should say it has to be a resident of Littleton.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's
I
important.
agree.
Agreed.
And that's also more the accountability, because the other thing, like, we're very lucky, she's elected. And, you know, she works her way more than she needs to, and she's so dedicated. But once you're elected, you don't have to. You can work half days. You don't have a boss, except for the voters. And so we haven't had that issue in Littleton, but you could have, and other towns have had. That's the other side of that, but.
Well, if we're talking about town clerk, I think there's value of electing the town clerk. Absolutely. And even notwithstanding that we would put in the charter, if we went to appointed, that it would be a town citizen. But the town clerk is the one person that practically everybody in town has anything to do with in the government, and that's the first person they see. We have been very fortunate that we've had, in my time here, two absolutely wonderful town clerks. I'd like to see that continue as an elected position. There's you look at the criteria here, it's relative, it's responsibilities guided mostly entirely by statute. And if we get elected town clerk that's a halfway worker, they're going to run afoul of the state statutes on what needs to be done, and they're going to hear that from Boston. So the state government will be down on like a ton of bricks. So I don't think that's an issue, that we'll get somebody in that position that just fluffs it off. What we've done in the past, Diane was the assistant town clerk for many, many years. So it was just obvious that she was the person who was going to take over because she had all the expertise. We're doing the same thing now with the assistant town clerk. I would like to see that position stay as elected.
Okay, but kind of what you just said, contradiction to some extent, because of they're basically getting appointed anyway, right? You're training them all this time, and they're going to be the next one, so you're having an election, but
Well,
you're not.
maybe
You're electing. There's only one
that's
person on
true.
the ballot every
Then
time.
maybe that's only my opinion.
No, I
but
know, I'm just-
but I would like it to be your opinion also.
I appreciate that.
You're also
And there is something the warm and fuzzy about voting for and whoever that person is and knowing them and so on. I agree.
Well, there's always some balance between what do people get a say in versus what is just put in front of them and say, oh, this is it. And it's kind of like, where do you give people a voice? And at what level and how many? I mean, I think the number of elections we have is kind of silly, especially when there's one or less candidates for a position. So definitely streamlining that. But like, what are the core things that are important for people to have a say in? And then, because you're elected, have that oversight of what's going on there, that check and balance.
You're talking about elections in general now, not for
Yeah,
the clerk.
yeah, just in general. And the town clerk, I mean, I know she's fantastic, but we've got 1,000 new people moving in shortly that don't know her from the next person, and, who's to say one of them isn't gonna vote for somebody different, or, there's no guarantees with an election.
Rob, you want to talk, or Charlotte? When you guys want to say anything?
I mean, I just want to say that in 51B, we currently, and I haven't heard us say anything in the last few minutes to change this, we do identify residency in Littleton as being a requirement of our elected people. So
Appointed or elected?
appointed,
Yeah.
excuse me, no, elected. We say they have to be
Citizens, yes.
citizens. So that continues the concept that a town clerk, if elected, and theoretically puts into place that if the town clerk was appointed, I don't think we currently have, because we've currently been discussing solely as the town clerk is elected up till now. I would think if we flip to appointed, the residency issue would need to be discussed extensively amongst us, or at least come to a conclusion, because residency, I think Diane made a phenomenal statement that was very, for me, very convincing with regard to absolutely an integral part of that. And otherwise, I agree, Joe and Alan, with what you've said, and Alan, particularly you. The first person and front-facing person on behalf of town government, I think, is the town clerk. I couldn't agree more, yeah. So I've been strongly in favor of elected. If I had heard convincing arguments different, to that tonight, am I that heavily one way that I couldn't be swayed? I'd say I wish I was more convinced of, resolute with regard to one side versus the other. But I'm currently comfortable with, where we are with maintaining elected. In this way, the way we're going about this, which I'm fine with, is we're almost effectively identifying a straw poll. 3 of us have now said we're in sync for elected, and so I almost want to put out, as we go forward with the others, have a identification of a straw poll.
We'll have an
for
actual
where-
vote. We said we would do that for these, Rob, because
Okay.
these are important.
All right.
And the select board have asked for it too. They want to know.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm
it's
just-
not
I'm
a
just
you
saying-
and you and you. It's 3-2, or it's.
But I'm just saying that
Yeah.
some of us have chosen to speak
Yeah.
specifically to a specific thing that's in effect starting to
Yeah.
become a straw poll
Yeah.
of sorts. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. All right, Charlotte?
Hey, yeah. I'm sort of mulling everything as you're sharing these ideas. I think one thing I think you said, Kyle, about what would one think of this if you were sort of listening at home, right, versus in our position. And the way that I've been grappling with that is that we have been tasked with being informed, being objective, seeing everything from multiple angles, kind of trying to look at the whole picture, and so sort of acknowledging that from that position we may be seeing things differently. I guess I'm landing in a more comfortable place with that. Specifically on the town clerk, one thing that strikes me is the success, sort of the comfort that generally people have with the current setup is effectively because it has been appointed in a way, or we're sort of even suggesting that we continue to appoint. If we have this succession planning process, that is what has made it successful. So that's why, even though I struggle to sort of say, the position shouldn't be elected, because I certainly hear all of the arguments for having it, maintaining it as an elected position. But it seems like the reason everything has gone so well and will continue to go so well by all accounts is that selection process is already underway. So we're then gambling on an election to turn out the way that we plan it to turn out versus actually executing on that succession plan, which overall leans me more towards an appointed position. And I say that in full kind of acknowledgement of the very, very compelling case that Dan made to maintain the position as an elected position. So again, I sort of find myself, where would I sit as a resident just tuning in versus weighing up everything that we've heard and trying to make an objective decision. And if I'm in that camp, I think I lean a little bit more towards appointed.
So I'd like to speak specifically to Charlotte. I'd like to speak specifically to the points that you've just raised. And that is, and I acknowledge it's important to separate the people out of this and deal with that. And so what I'm about to say might confuse you. I hope it doesn't. You know, I get the point with regard to grooming and having the assistant as being the heir apparent, and de facto that seems like they're appointed. The point that I'd like to say is that individual, you know, whether it's Andrew right now or whether it's whomever in the future, we can groom them all they want, but the person that holds those positions, the town clerk and the assistant clerk, really have tremendous value to their communities. In the case of the person that we currently have as assistant, who I think is terrific, I would expect the location that once had him as their person in Harvard, why wouldn't they want to kidnap? If I were in Harvard and had an opening for a town clerk position, I'd give strong consideration and make a run at Andrew. And then all of a sudden, because he's a free individual, he could jump. And then all of a sudden, if we're in an appointed situation, the whole concept that the heir apparent has been groomed is turned upside down. Now you've got no heir apparent because the person's an individual able to jump to a different job. And that's, I think, effectively taking out the consideration who that person currently is. So I just want to throw that out, that it's worked out nicely, and maybe it'll work out nicely, you know, in the future, but you always run that risk with regard to talent can move to any locale that they care to and take whatever job they'd like to take.
But that would almost scare me more, honestly, because now we've got no heir apparent, and now you've got people running for this elected position, and there's a lot involved, and you don't, are they qualified? Will they do it? Are they into it? Do they even know what it is?
But to
That's
Ellen,
scarier to me than having somebody appoint someone who maybe you look at and say.
and I think that's valid. I don't
Okay.
need to. I can
Okay.
make a point, but I think that's a very valid. It's a dicey decision.
These are big decisions. So Kevin, I know you have opinions on this.
Uh,
I thought town clerk was something that you felt
Oh,
strongly about.
yeah. When I heard the charge to think big and do what you think is best for the town going forward and so forth, I stepped back and rethought about the criteria for elected and appointed, and maintaining discretion to fill important positions with the right person. And so that premise carries over to my opinion on this role. And I understand, and I'm not surprised by, and I fully appreciate the divided nature of thought here. I appreciate that. I would throw my hat in the appointed column. And I do say that so that we can do things like succession planning, and we don't have to go through an election and not know whether I'm going to be the next, that we could have the discretion to appoint the right person, i.e. the person who's been working at her side for forever. Diane was appointed. There's never been a contested election. So I get that there's something cultural about going through the process of election. I understand that. And on this point, I understand that this may be one we don't want to, a bite at the apple we don't want to bite off right now. Or maybe we bite it off and do transition, say some stuff in transition. But I would opt primarily for two things. And we talked about this when we met. And I said, this is an employee of the town. I don't believe any employee of the town should be elected. No other employee of the town is elected. They should be hired. And we should have discretion to terminate them for non-performance. The police chief isn't elected. The fire chief isn't elected. I don't understand some of the differences about how this job is up a little bit on a pest different than other key jobs. So I don't see that distinction as much.
That's a good point.
I think it is.
I don't see that distinction as much. And I want to see it be a cog in the operation of this town's operations, not a standalone. So I'll leave it at that and say that I understand and I appreciate the fact that we have divided thought on this. I think it's an important issue for the town. And after I think about it, I would throw my, in the appointed.
You want to say anything, Mark, about this one?
I think this one's a tricky one. I can see both sides of it. I also, if it's an appointed position, who appoints them? Is it the select board? Is it the town manager? If they're elected and resign, what's the succession plan, right? I mean, and it's even harder because who runs the election when you don't have a town clerk to elect a new town clerk? So,
There you go.
so I can see, this is a really tricky one. And I see it both ways. I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer on this one.
Agreed.
So can I speak to who appoints? Just
Yeah.
my thought, I think I've said this before, but I think if we go with the strong town manager model, employees, to your point, are appointed by the town manager or somewhere under their structure. And the boards and committees and the oversight belong to the select board and they make the appointments. That's
We
my
can do anything we want in the charter.
dividing line.
But we can do anything we want in the charter.
No, I know.
If we choose, but you're right.
But that's, I'm
Right.
saying this is what I would like to see in the charter.
Right, that it would be, so let's go that way. So you're saying if the town clerk were appointed,
It would fall under the town manager,
and so the town manager would
appoint the town
appoint
clerk.
a new one, so as another employee, as opposed to on a board where the town manager nominates, but the select board appoints, which is what's
Sometimes the
happening.
town manager nominates. Sometimes people self-nominate. You know.
Well, yeah, but ultimately through the
Yeah.
process.
So I think on this one, because, bringing back into the conversation that we had last night with the select board, it appears that we may not be unanimous. That's okay. That's going to lead to, if we follow what was said last night, then there'll be an open dialogue with, in a joint meeting, and this might come up, and they'll have the benefit of both sides of the argument, and they'll understand whatever the vote is, and they'll figure it out from there and deal with the tricky, aspect of this.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right.
And that's why we're here.
Okay. All right, so you want to take out like a vote on this one, and then, so we have it in the record, and then just move on? Again, it's not necessarily person by person, it's more numbers is where I really
Yeah,
want to.
I'm good unless somebody else has
Okay.
thoughts that they want to,
All right.
share,
All right.
beyond what's already been said.
Talking about this, town clerk? All right, let's go. So, or do you want to just say all in favor? Let's all appointed? Who wants to do appointed?
Aye.
Oh, wow.
And Charlotte,
He flipped me.
I lost something
Employee
there.
wait a minute, right,
So,
what do we,
We're doing, so we're saying, who is in favor of recommending that the town clerk be appointed?
Kevin?
Kyle.
Betsy?
Karen.
Rob.
Charlotte.
Okay. Okay, and then, and then stay elected, we have 2. Okay, good. And I would say for a lot of us, the appointed is, it's not like it's,
Oh, it's a tough, yes,
Yeah,
I would
oh,
agree.
I-
And I appreciate you saying that. As we go forward,
I
I
agree.
think that's a very appropriate
Yeah,
thing to
this is not
to
one of those
comment.
ones, no.
This is a tough one, because I, well, just a few moments ago said elected. I got moved by what
Yeah.
Kevin just said with regard to the only employee. That's a
Yeah.
pretty strong statement.
Job
Well,
for-
she's a town employee by virtue of being elected. Otherwise, she would not be a town employee.
And they wouldn't be the clerk either.
No?
Yeah, but it is a tough one. To your point, I think this is a very tough one.
okay.
And I think we
I'm
oughta-
comfortable that
Yeah.
select board will take it forward with regard to both sides. And I encourage us to have a big discussion, doesn't have to be lengthy, but to state our viewpoints. Because I might make very good viewpoints with regard to keep it as elected, quite frankly, even though I just said appointed.
But this way, we keep it open so that we have a bigger conversation with the select board and then
Yeah.
how it's decided, right,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, then, we do Board of Health or Park and Rec first? Let's do Park and Rec. So,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I want you to.
I was just going to say, that Park and Rec, I think we should move to appointed. I see nothing that we gain by election that we don't also have if we appoint people. And there's no reason to suspect that the people who are elected to those positions would not reapply under appointment. There's all sorts of criteria here, but that's my feeling.
Okay.
I fully support what Alan just said. I'm for that being flipped from elected to appointed, and I've previously said that. I don't need to, if you want, I could say more, but
Okay.
I've previously been waiting for this opportunity to establish my position on this.
Oh, you don't have to wait, Rob. Come on, come on.
Drum roll.
Really?
I'd like to hear more about your position.
Yeah,
And Charlotte,
so apologies to all of you if I've done that way too much on this one.
Charlotte
We
has
love you, Rob.
Charlotte has her hand raised.
Charlotte?
Hey, yeah, similar comment. I think as I went back to the sort of matrix for decision making, this piece around being critical to the effective and efficient functioning of the government and the cooperation regularly with other officials kind of landed a little bit differently the second time around after, a few weeks of deliberation. And I think going back to the very beginning, we're talking about an effective governance structure that serves everyone in Littleton as the town grows, increasing complexity and the need to manage that effectively, manage it efficiently, continue to provide the quality of services, etc. I mean, all those things just, to me, ultimately pushed me more towards appointed for both of these, the Parks and Rec and Board of Health. So I think I sit squarely in that camp. Again, acknowledging that some really solid arguments have been made for both sides, and it was it's hard to kind of truly balance it out, but that's kind of where I'm coming out at this point.
I would put my vote in the appoint column.
I just go back to one thing, when we had the Park and Rec in here, I think I told you that Saul made the statement during that process that he goes, it's nice to let the people have a feeling that they've elected somebody. That's my only point to it, that I'm leaning toward appointed also, but there is some truth. The other thing is too is that we have it set up now that the head of each department is going to report directly to the town manager. That's already there. So it is possible to have an elected board underneath it that still has, does some policy doing, whatever. And that's probably leaning more to the planning board, but I think it could work both ways, but I'm leaning to it appointed.
Yeah, Joe, just to that point, I think, as again, I'm sort of reflecting on this with half a hat of a user of many Parks and Rec services, as well as a member of the committee. But as I mulled on this a little bit more, I thought, well, is it more important to have a hand in the selection and to feel vested in the sort of election process for those committee members or board members, or more important that actually the delivery of the services that I hope to get as a resident, right? That those, that the programming and the kind of balance of services are well suited to the members and, residents of Littleton and so on. So when I was thinking about it from that perspective, I think I landed at, what is going to deliver, not just today, but in perpetuity. That's kind of where I ended up leaning more towards appointed, because it doesn't feel great sort of relinquishing that elected nature of the position, but I think that ultimately it will mean that we can maintain the kind of quality again, not just with the great people that we have today, but that we can maintain that in the years and decades to come.
One of the things I look at for both of these is just, if there were contested elections, it would be a whole different discussion to me. Because then you have, you've got the Rotary Club thing before the election, people are talking about what they're going to do with the position or things they like and don't like, and you get some value out of that, and you feel like there's some of that balance of power here you talk about. But when but in the end you don't have that, then it's kissing your sister kind of thing, I guess, Sorry, my sister.
Well, but that's a very, very valid point, and that was one of the first points we talked about, and is elections competitive? And they're definitely not.
Right, unfortunately. And they're probably not going to be going forward. I mean, the reality is things are changing in terms of people being that committed and have the time and so on to do this.
You got
things, right?
the Board of Health. We now have a director of Board of Health who's by experience and it is technically competent. And then we elect a board, not necessarily this board, but in going forward, you could have 3 or 4 members on there that have absolutely no experience and no technical expertise in what boards of health do. And then you could be loggerheads with the director. It makes perfect sense that these be appointed, because then you can appoint people who would lend some value, as opposed to elected somebody that is trying to learn, might have the best interest at heart, but lends no value to the committee.
Absolutely agree. Like Charlotte mentioned, I also have 2 kids. They also participate in the Parks and Rec. If I were to think about myself being elected to this Board of Parks and Rec, I would have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to build programs for children. I don't know how to serve the public. I don't know what to do for Camp T. I don't know how to maintain Long Lake. All of these things, where I'm definitely unqualified. However, I could be elected to a position on this board. And so all of those programs I just mentioned, completely unqualified for. And then we think about, I know how much these programs cost because I pay them. So I have to assume that they have a large budget. And now we take into the whole budgetary financial factor of it. To me, this requires, again, if I look at my list, expertise, a history of expertise in doing things like this, putting together programs for children, maintaining, a Parks and Rec program for a town. And that's why some of the reasons why I'm landing on appointed versus elected. Because to your point, Alan, I would have the best intentions for our Parks and Rec department, but I have absolutely no qualifications. So if I were elected, I would try my darndest, but I would probably fail. But under the current system, I could be elected and I would be just as qualified as the next person who got on the ballot or even were written in. So from my perspective, given how much this town relies on Parks and Rec and how much our people benefit from Parks and Rec, me included and my family included, and then given the budget of Parks and Rec, I believe that this position or these positions should be appointed.
And not necessarily to say that people that are in there now don't have those qualifications, they may or may not. It's just going forward, it's again,
No, we're
again,
talking
we always
about,
talk about this, you take the current personalities out of these discussions, right?
Right.
How you should do it, how should it be set up for the town in general.
Yeah, for the record, I was just talking about myself being
I know.
unqualified. Nobody else.
I know.
I am very unqualified.
Like many smart, you'd figure it out quick, but the point is well taken. And as all these things get more complicated going forward than they used to be, there's just more involved with all these things. That's the other issue, right? There's more laws and regulations. All right, do we want to vote these together? I'm not hearing differences, or do you want to just individually? How do you want to do it?
I do individual, just for the
Okay, just
record.
for the record?
Just for the record, yeah.
Okay, Park and Rec, who wants to say appointed?
Charlotte?
Charlotte?
Appointed.
Wow, okay. That's a switch. Cool.
So with Board of Health, the wrinkle was, and I think it was a compromise from our last discussion, I think we had hybrid
Yep.
appointed and
Yep.
elected.
Mm-hmm. Yep, oh, that's true. So
That's
She'll
because
talk
we-
about that, right? Although if you go
Because
all
we came
appointed, it
to
won't
the-
matter, so, right.
Right, it was the same conversation, just a different group.
Right.
Expertise, community input, da-da-da-da-da, and we landed on hybrid, which is a clear compromise.
Right.
So I say we take hybrid off the table and
Yeah,
one or the other.
I think that was a
That was just to move
It was a
on.
little
Right.
discussion, but it has no merit as far as I'm concerned.
The hybrid. The hybrid? You don't,
I take the hybrid, yes.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just did that for the sake of, let's move on.
Yep. I agree.
Okay, so
It's-
more discussion on Board of Health? You want to talk about it anymore, or is it pretty much the same? It's,
I would just say that if there was, this is my strongest case for voting because of the expertise issue primarily, and having the discretion to select people who are well qualified to serve here. That would be just my editorial comment for why my vote is for appointed.
Yeah.
okay. Charlotte?
Yep, very similar to the last discussion. I think two things play into my appointing leaning here is that being able to interface with other areas of government and kind of operate and have the expertise within that government structure. And then also I think it was, you mentioned it, Carl, around budget, right? You've got a board that is responsible for a lot of financial decisions, policy setting, and I think again having a expertise and an appreciation of the implications of that would be helpful. Again, we want to be able to maintain the kind of good functioning that we've had so far. So yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Okay, I had a short conversation with some other topics with Mark earlier today. One thing he mentioned was that in some respects, Board of Health is very similar to CONSCOM, and they are appointed. Just, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Similar in what way? Briefly.
Well, I mean,
CONSCOM oversees things like wetlands protections, you have here, Board of Health oversees things like septic permits and disputes that they're similar in that regards. Board of Health has other responsibilities, so does CONSCOM, but
okay, you want to take a vote then? Okay,
Absolutely.
so who wants to say appointed for Board of Health? Wow. Charlotte?
Yep, appointed.
Okay. All right, so that's the recommendation, and obviously to be continued with prior conversations, but, all right, that's good. I think that was good work. I
And
mean,
the
it's-
select board can now take the politics and listen to everything.
Exactly.
Get ready.
What did we decide on planning board?
it stays elected.
Elected.
I know, we didn't,
Was
we didn't
it,
even bring that up today.
That might have been briefly, you came a couple minutes, but there might have been a comment or two. So do you want, I'm fine with the discussion of planning board if you want to put planning board in
I
the
had it as a
discussion.
question mark, because I wasn't even sure when I was trying to go back through and be like, where did we land
I
on
think,
this?
I think Betsy did, went through the thing, and so I'm open for a discussion of it, should
You
you
want to
care.
just
to want.
revalidate it?
We had our discussion about it before. I think the only thing we decided at that point to do about the planning board was to reduce the
Oh, the
length
term,
of term of office from 5 years to 3 years.
yeah.
And I think it was, we didn't take a vote, but it was
Yep.
sense of the committee that they would stay elected. But we can discuss it if anybody feels like it.
You can if you want, just to have it on the record. Okay, so planning board, who wants to stay elected?
So elected with a shorter term.
Elected with a three-year term, but that's
It's
separate things, I would
Elected.
think. Elected. Planning board elected. Charlotte?
Sorry, just coming off mute there.
Okay.
I think I'd have to think about this one a little bit more. I hadn't, I think in my head I'd had that we decided to keep it elected, so I'd sort of
Right.
entered it in my brain. So yeah, I maybe need a few more minutes before I can wrangle my thoughts on that one.
And there's no specific expertise required, like.
It's a learning curve. It's a long learning curve, which is why originally it's 5 years, and in MGL, I think it's 5 years is the default. But then we kind of said, well, the select board kind of has a learning curve too, and they're 3 years. And so we'd go to 3 years, but
I
yeah.
think one of the best meetings we had all along was when our planning board came in, because they knew exactly what the role was, that they were there to set policy and type of things, and it was, the next step was to take care of all the governmental type things, and I thought they did a phenomenal job in their presentation.
I think some of the things that come before them routinely pertaining to zoning bylaws and things of that nature, I would like to continue having an elected set of people be deliberating and enacting such things. And certainly as our community is facing King Street Common today, it really proves, in my opinion, proves the point of how important it is that we hold our officials elected, and we want them to be elected to represent the spirit of the citizens with regard to what we have before them. It's a very, very difficult job. I respect all of them that are willing to serve. But I would like to continue to have that ability that if we have, if the citizenry feels differently, they get the opportunity to change those elected positions, over period of time with regard to one coming up every year, and it allows us to move things should the citizenry care to do that.
I agree
So-
with what you said too, when you're talking about 550 King Street. I can just imagine going through that process and having those people appointed by one person, making a choice on something that big.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's a great example, not to say that we should be dealing with the specific of before them. I think that's exactly where I find myself. It's hard to separate.
Okay. Charlotte, you still thinking?
Still thinking so hard I can't come off mute. Yeah. Yeah, I think it also, to me, is a little bit of wrapping my head around how much of that decision-making authority the planning board has versus the planning director, right? And, you're saying, I think it was Joe, you were just saying, right, that taking the example of King Street, like who's making the decisions? There's something, to me, a little bit different about then the planning board, the way that the authority of the planning board is not just setting those policies. I think I'm a little split right now, but I could be swayed either way.
Okay, well, I mean, one change that will happen going forward is that the planning director will be through the town manager now and not hired by the planning board. So, all right, well, why don't we take a vote, and if Charlotte wants to abstain at this point, she can, and move on, okay? All right. Who's in favor of continuing the planning board being elected? All right. So we've got everybody here, I'm sorry, let's say it out loud so we have it because
Oh,
of
Kevin.
Charlotte, yeah.
Yes.
Kyle.
Joe,
Betsy?
Aye.
always do.
Me, no, Karen.
Rob?
Okay. So,
All right, and I will default to my earlier position then in light of no additional information.
all right.
So
it's
I'll stick with elected.
Okay. All right.
So Betsy, I'm looking at section 5.1 as currently drafted. And it, I think if we were to proceed, if the town were to proceed on the basis we just said we would be recommending, it would now say, to be filled by election of the town's voters shall be a town moderator,
Yep.
Light Commission, Water Commission, Board of Library Trustees, Planning Board, and Housing Authority.
Yep.
Did you say school committee too?
That's a good point.
not
Where
on
am I in this section? The Select Board, I'm in section elected offices.
Oh,
That's
it should
a,
be on there, you're right, it's not
That's
there.
in, wait, let
Okay,
me
go
just
ahead.
clarify to try to help. What did you say, Joe?
Oh, no,
Was the school committee mentioned?
Yeah, the school committee and the select board are separately addressed previously, and hence this set
Yeah.
provision
Yeah.
is other elected,
Right.
not for
Right.
those that have already been identified as being elected.
yep.
Thank you.
so, but good point, Joe. If you threw in all elected, you'd throw in Select Board, you'd throw in addition here, you'd throw in Select Board and what, School Committee?
Correct.
And that would be it, I think, right?
And Housing Authority appointed or elected?
Oh,
Three
Housing
of them are
authority-
elected.
Yeah,
Three
correct.
are elected, and this one's, this version says that.
And that's mass general law.
Yeah,
We don't
I
have the
thought so.
ability to change that.
Are there any appointed positions on the Housing
By
Authority?
mass general law, it's the governor's office that appoints
One person.
one of the people. I think the other one is a tenant.
Oh, that's what it is,
It's
yeah.
like
Right.
it's like, I hesitate to use the word, it's sort of a hybrid,
Yeah,
It is, it truly
yeah.
is.
but
So-
governed by,
you're looking at this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a interesting. Good.
Charlotte,
Charlotte, got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify where we landed on then processes for appointments, term limits, things like that, the who of the appointment. Remind me, is that a separate section in the charter, or is that going to be
No, it's in there.
detailed elsewhere?
under, I think-
couldn't quite recall.
I don't remember where we said it either, but the process is the town manager appoints and the select board, oh no, town manager nominates and the select board appoints unless we specify otherwise for one of any of these.
Nominates the employee.
Well, nominates the person to be on these boards. These things that we just said are now appointed rather than elected?
We did say that.
Yes. So, but it doesn't mean that the town manager is sitting in an office doing it by themselves. I mean, there's a
no,
process.
I get
Okay,
that.
so I know, but I think it's important to say that, because I think people have that in their heads. I mean, if we get to that point, then you've got a problem. But the process is, in most cases, going to be probably what happens today, right? The people on the board are there, somebody leaves, or they say they're going to leave, and so we need to find somebody else. And so you find out somebody else who's interested and who might have it, and you get them to apply, and then, but now there's maybe more of a vetting process and some more things that happen.
So then what does the select board appoint? Anything?
Well,
Make the final decision.
They make the final decision. So the town manager nominates, select board appoints. So there's a,
See, I had it totally opposite
okay.
in my head, that the select board, who we elect,
Mhm.
would be responsible for appointing the people as a check and balance to
But
the
they,
town
but they still
manager.
are appointing. They're just being nominated by the town manager. So the process of who's interested, who might be qualified, they come up. But still, the select board, the appointed people, or the elected people, the select board still have the final ones to say yes. And
For
so
the,
that's
for the
check.
boards,
For the boards. And for, yes.
like all those dozens of committees, is that still select board?
Well, that,
I don't think all those go through the town manager, do they?
no, they don't. I don't,
Well, but I think this is
It's-
I think this is worthy of getting right into what we have in the language and expanding this discussion a bit. It's not an insignificant
okay, you
thing.
want to do it right now? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the latest version of the charter?
Well, the one I printed off here is 2.4. I think in my computer I have made a couple updates, but they were relatively minor, I
That's
think, after
mine
that.
as well. But I agree with
So-
you. That's, I believe, the last document that you put out.
and what should we be looking at?
So I think it's 6.2D.
6.2.
Yeah, exactly. Needs to be expanded, I think.
Yeah, and I think my impetus for asking that question was if we are going to move so many positions to appointed, I think being able to clearly articulate that this process is open, fair, transparent is going to be important. So sort of codifying that in the language in some way, like not detailing the process, like this is how you apply, but something that indicates that anybody can put themselves forward for, they can apply to be on one of these boards, and they will be considered. But as you just described, you would have then ultimately a kind of selection or at least a review process by the town manager or whoever, and then the select board would make that final decision. But it would seem like you'd have to have some kind of acknowledgement that this needs to be like an open process.
So let me try.
I'm sorry?
6.2
E, really, for this.
E, yeah.
Thank you.
Which says nominate for select board, nominate, so this is a power and duty of the town manager, who, according to 6.2E, will nominate for select board appointment or removal of volunteer, then it goes on to be all the multiple member, unless it's otherwise identified in the charter, bylaw, etc. So it is the select board's ultimate decision, but the nomination coming from the town manager. I mean, just last night, we had sustainability committee, and, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but what I heard was Karen Morrison, the select board chair, say that in her, as she brought forward Elizabeth Donegan for sustainability committee, that she had contacted both the chair and the vice chair of the sustainability committee. And excuse me, Charlotte, I apologize. This is your thing. You're you're the co-chair.
I'm aware.
You're the co-chair, yeah. So there it was, and it played out with regard to, from my perspective, the select board weighing in by Karen's comment with regard to considering the fact that a person had come forward, which everybody, it's open, it's routinely identified by the town administrator right now as to what vacancies exist on the various, boards and committees, whether, they're for the appointed ones, excuse me. And should citizens want to put their name in, they identify it on the town website and submit their name, and they get, through a process that, I don't want to say it's extensive, but whatever the process is, everybody's got the opportunity to do it, and then it's considered. Then what I saw play out last night was reference, basically, Charlotte, to you and Sarah, that gave a thumbs up with regard to the person that had come forward, and from there it went.
Yeah.
So it seemed to me,
I guess
like that process, I was comfortable seeing what I saw.
And thanks, Rob. Like that's kind of what I was referring to. That there is a form or there's a process somewhere, right, to apply for these positions. And again, not suggesting at all that process level should go in the charter, but that it is open and fair and anybody can apply. And my understanding is that existing members of a committee don't weigh in on a yay or nay, right? This is not sort of our place to decide whether someone should necessarily join the committee, but I think that there's potentially room for bias there. Certainly obviously express some opinions, but yeah, I think that's what I was really just getting at, that this is a clear pathway for putting one's hat in for an open position.
Well, what we just talked about was a committee that went through the select board. What I'm hearing is that boards would go through town manager, who would lead the charge and put that in front of the select board, yes? Mark?
So I'll weigh in a little bit here for some. So the way I believe it kind of works and should work, someone applies through the town clerk, town administrator for positions that require certain qualifications. They should be vetted through like the chairs of those committees where there's already the expertise to say whether this person's skill set that they list in their application matches what's actually required, because they're more capable of doing that than the select board or the town administrator being in the day-to-day of that committee. And then they don't necessarily approve or disapprove of the person, as opposed to approve or disapprove of their qualifications for that position. And then based on that, the town administrator will make a recommendation by putting the application in our packet to say, approve this person or one of these people for a position. And then the select board, will weigh in. If there's multiples, then, the town administrator could bring multiples to us and we will, have them arm wrestle and pick one. So.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying what I was trying to say there, Mark. That, yeah, we don't want to be in a position to be picking personalities or people, but yes, to be looking at the objectively at the qualifications and the expertise that would be brought.
So that, to me, sounds like the town manager, is managing the process and the gathering and the vetting.
Right.
And puts it in front of the board, which to me sounds a little different than nominating, but maybe that's just the official term. It more sounds like they're acting as like a HR department for the board. Here are all the applications we got, here are the one, we've checked them out, these one look good. That's,
And then they nominate them.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I think
guess it
that's
is.
the words, and so if it's a matter of words, we could look for other charters, we could get into the select board and.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding
Yeah,
it
no, no,
correctly. Because to me, nominating means like, hey, Rob, I think you should be on that committee.
Yeah, but I think as we've just been discussing, maybe that's the word, and that's what I'm trying to say. If
Yeah,
it's,
maybe
if it's
that
the
it
word,
ends
maybe
up
we,
being
maybe we modify
what
the
that
words in
means.
order to reflect better what the process
But
actually.
it's a process,
that-
it's not
correct,
just a.
because the
Right.
citizens
Right.
submit their names, et cetera. It's not just a matter of a town manager
Yes.
tapping somebody on the shoulder. That's not
Yes, because I feel a
process.
lot better hearing that than I did.
Yeah. I think
It was
it's
a single
very good.
stream.
I'm
Yeah.
happy you're bringing out
Yeah,
the
we'll-
point.
We'll look and see if we find some more. We just add some wording in there about being a processor.
Yeah, or at least
Open
I'm open to that.
Yeah,
If that's
absolutely.
responsive to your concern, yeah, I think I'm open to that.
from my perspective, if the town manager is basically doing the entire HR process and vetting the candidates and then making a recommendation after going through all of that, the select board's approval just seems procedural at that point, because the TM has already done all of the work. And so, it seems like anything that the TM would recommend, or any person that the team would recommend, at that point, they've been fully vetted. The TM has already interviewed them, gone through the HR process, and it's really just, dare I say, a rubber stamp at that point from the select board to say, yes, you are blessed, go and take this position. So I don't know what involved, if it's not more involved than that from the select board's perspective, I don't know what involving the select board does other than making it
Makes
seem
it public.
more stringent than it really is.
Yeah.
But I would also say it's, because of its public is one, but knowing that they have to go to the select board, there's somebody else going to look at it and say, well, because they're also going to have the they could question it and say, well, what are the qualifications? People are going to come in. They're just knowing that the town administrator has to do that step. So you're going to be more careful than just, well, my buddy or something like that. Then you've got somebody else.
And,
looking.
it's also like when you hire somebody, I mean, you go through, if you're the hiring manager, you go through the process, you interview the candidates, and the one that you bring to your boss to be like, hey, this is the person, that I want to see get the job. Well, you interview them, and then it's kind of like,
I mean, speaking from experience, at that point, it is procedural. It's just like, are you a good personality fit?
Right.
Do you meet all the things that they already said that you meet? Okay, yes.
So I'll fill in a little bit here. It often is procedural, but that's because there's only typically one candidate that's brought forward. If multiple people applied, then it's no longer procedural. If you look at your selection process, right, it wasn't just procedural then, right? There were, 14 people that applied for the 9 slots. And you don't necessarily, the town administrator, manager doesn't necessarily have the same background in the town politics as the select board. And you wouldn't necessarily want the town manager making that decision because it wouldn't be as public, the public-facing part of it. When there are multiple candidates is a lot more important. A lot of times it is procedural because it's just one person. But when it's not, it becomes much more important for it to be public.
It also gives the highest elected board in town the possibility of saying no to a certain candidate that they might have a problem with. So, I mean, the final choice, in my opinion, should rest with the highest elected board.
I agree.
It should?
It should.
Yes. Okay.
I agree.
I want to make sure I heard you state.
If the word nominate is too strong, we could use recommend.
Right.
The town manager recommends to the select board the appointment.
Yeah, that does,
I think
that's a tonal change.
That's a tonal change, yes.
Yeah.
Karen, does that? Okay.
Is Charlotte's hand up?
Charlotte?
Yeah, just agreeing that I think the public facing part, I feel like matters a lot. And also, if the town manager is managing and hiring the department heads, I think it's a good check and balance to have the select board make the final decision on the board members, so that there is a kind of distribution of responsibility there.
I think that's a really good point.
Okay.
I've got one that probably didn't see coming.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I take to heart what Sal Marini stated at the last meeting, in which he said with regard, because we're right there, 6.2D, Sal went out of his way to disclose that he's not for 6.2D as it currently is written, but he also backed off very quickly and we didn't have a discussion of it. And I found myself since that meeting looking it over and thinking, okay, he's attended a number of our meetings and he's participated and he's, participates extensively in the town, so I take to heart what he has to say. And in that regard, what I found was in 6.2D, and I think this has been a recurring theme over several months with different boards and committees as they've come in and passionately spoken about keep them the way they are, whether it's elected, appointed, etc. And so the language of 6.2D, says the town manager shall appoint and remove all department heads, etc. And then it goes on to say, for those that are a department head, from an elected body, which now this would be the planning board with regard to the town planning, that elected group would be consulted. And I find myself in a couple of different ways looking at different charters and want to just put before you very quickly. Auburn, similar passage, inserts the words, town manager shall appoint upon merit and fitness alone the head of each department. And that goes on to say some other things. And that addition of merit and fitness, Sal's not here, he's at the Park and Rec Commission meeting that's going on tonight. But I found myself, okay, that would seem to do another step away from kind of a town manager having just absolute authority with, I'm going to do whatever I want to do with regard to the concepts of merit and fitness. That's one thing. And then also in 6.2D, the second sentence has for department heads supporting an elected body, and I got to myself, and this is where I'm a little bit squishy, but if it was an appointed group, because we are moving a great number of groups from elected to appointed, why don't we expand it from elected to appointed as well? And if the appointed committee disagrees with the action proposed by the town manager, then let's give them that opportunity to say that they should be consulted and give them the opportunity to participate in that, because it's a it's a big change and it's a lot of authority. And I feel like we've heard from different groups over the several months a lack of comfort, not directly targeting this specific thing, but it's directionally something I want to bring up.
Yeah, no, I think especially with the changes we just voted, that should definitely say an elected or appointed. I'm totally in favor of that.
Agree.
Um,
It just
Great.
makes, it gives some clarity also, you know.
On the merit and fitness, I would hope HR processes and other things handle that, but maybe not, I don't know.
Hopefully that would not necessarily have to be said, but it could be.
Did Charlotte have something to say?
Her hand's not up. Charlotte, you want to say anything?
Sorry, I just said I agree.
So
Nodding, virtually nodding. I can't do any like little emojis off this platform, so but I was giving you the thumbs up.
So I usually test new propositions by saying, in the end, is there any perverse outcome that could come from what we're saying? So if we add, for department heads supporting an elected or appointed body, the town manager shall consult with the respected elected or appointed board or body, correct? Any perverse outcomes there? So every appointed body, where there's a department head, what are we talking about? For department heads supporting, so we're talking about canning department heads. Isn't, right? We're talking about terminating a
Or
department.
or hiring them.
Or hiring.
Or hiring, yep.
Yep.
The town manager shall consult in all cases with every elected and appointed body.
No, well, with the respective elected appointed board.
Right.
Wouldn't you expect that to happen, though? If something happened to an employee that's, like the park and rec director, say, not just as an example. If something were happening there, that the park and rec board would be discussed. I mean, not necessarily who gets veto power or anything like that, but they would be part of the discussion. I would hope that would happen. And
So
if you're
this
gonna hire
body,
somebody, and if you're gonna hire somebody, that you're gonna,
yep, I just like to talk,
Yeah, yeah.
this body is an appointed body.
which body? Us?
This body.
Okay?
So, do we have any department heads supporting this body?
Nope.
No? All right. Personnel Advisory Committee, head of HR. There's a Personnel Advisory Committee that does something. I don't know if it's, reports, or if that entity is different. I'm just testing.
No, it's good.
I'm
This is
just
good.
testing to
No,
make
no,
sure,
it's good.
does this work with all appointed, are we ready to commit to this with every appointed body? Special, temporary?
Well, let me throw this out to you, Kevin, because I think you're making very, very valid points. I think it's worthy. And again, didn't come into tonight thinking that I was going to do this, but when I found myself dealing with the previous thing, found myself, there it was. I remembered Sal and thought it's worthy, of comment. And I think you're validating that seems worthy. In that regard, I'd be fine with not making a definitive decision, expanding that. We could continue to discuss, it's only 7:25. There are some that I think, unlike your example of the HR and planning relationship, there are some that clearly, in my opinion, conservation agent directly supports and is associated with the Conservation Commission. I think that goes the same way. I'm going to use cemetery, that we had during our meetings 3 different times, that each member is elected currently came in and strongly. So I think that they feel an alignment with TC, the cemetery superintendent. I'm not so certain that relationship works, to your point, with regard to the HR director and the personnel committee. And maybe that brings me to let's look at that with regard to your, question and probing of perverse outcomes and bring it up,
Can I chime in? In
Yeah,
my
that's all I wanted
mind,
to
there's
say.
some levels between a board and a commission versus a committee. Like a committee to me is a working group, recommendations, but not necessarily driving policy or overseeing the work of to me, a board and a commission has a different status than a committee. And I would suggest that those would be the groups that would have a department head connection. So is it fair to take committees out
Off
of
the
the
table?
discussion and just focus on boards and commissions, of which there are much fewer, and those have more defined responsibilities. Like the bicycle committee. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the committees, you know, life goes on if you don't have them, where the boards and commissions are a little bit more stronger role, I think, in my opinion.
By the way, I just want to add, I totally support this premise, that where there is that dotted, what I call a dotted line, solid line, I call to the, in the new world, solid lines and will be to the town manager or to someone, I call dotted lines like a indirect reporting relationship, and many positions in towns and companies have dotted lines to other entities like boards of directors and stuff. So I respect this premise. I want to be careful that we don't put in something here we regret later.
Which is a shall consult with, so it's,
Yeah. Yep.
Or board or commission, I would suggest maybe
So
take
I
off.
fully support that we should be really careful on what we call a committee versus a commission versus a board, and we probably need, generally need better language on that, so we can make the distinction. I think by changing this to elected and appointed, you're adding basically conservation and COA in. I don't think, the personal advisory, I don't think applies, because I think it is the opposite relationship, where the committee isn't, the HR isn't supporting the committee is supporting the HR. It's flipped from the other boards. So, that's
So
just
who do you
my,
think we'd be adding?
Council on Aging and the Conservation Commission are the ones that are currently appointed that would fall into this. The rest of them are the ones that you already have. And they both have MOUs already. They just are drastically different.
And I'm fine leaving it like it is, by the way, if we're, by the way.
okay, no, it's good. No, you're
'Cause I-
right, because you did this on some, you took this, on, in our subcommittee, this came up on something, and you did something, and it made a lot of sense to
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah, I like the
what
notion of
unintended
consultation.
consequences, right, collateral damage or whatever, right? Okay, so, I would like to spend some time on the, public forum, because I think I have a lot of things I'd like to discuss on that. So are we good with this for right now? Everybody good?
So where are we at? If you
In
could
terms
just
of this?
recap where we're at.
So, why don't, if you guys are okay, what we can do is have the subcommittee go back and look and see if we want to add in merit and fitness and come back and propose something or not? Or do you want to just vote here and say we want to add in merit or fitness or not?
I'd like to just, and the other part was, do we want to expand it to appointed?
I think, for me, that's a yes, because otherwise we
And
just,
that's
we
what
just took all this
that's
out.
why I'm asking for the
Okay, I'm sorry.
clarification,
Yes.
so that we've got a
Yeah.
clear understanding
both.
of where we're at.
Okay,
I'm fine with both if you want to.
you just say yes and go? You good with the merit and fitness too? I mean,
Sure.
okay. All right, because I've seen that in several charters, you're right. Okay. All right, we'll move to
Charlotte, good?
Charlotte?
Again, because this
Yeah.
is an important meeting with regard to setting us up for transition to select board, so on something that we're doing like this, I think it's big enough
All right,
that.
so Charlotte, you said yes?
Yes, on both.
Okay, all right.
100%.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for everybody.
Log into the meeting? And-
What's that?
Do you want me to log into the meeting so I can share?
Yes. That would be great.
Find that meeting invite again.
Is it snowing at your house?
According to my radar, yeah.
Because I'm looking at my doorbell cam and it looks clear. Well, over near the
It was snowing when I
Stay
was
alive for
driving
half
here.
a
Right,
minute.
That was
right.
the last one here.
the weatherman.
I can see everything that's coming.
Yeah,
All right, this is gonna be like really hard to read.
the weatherman said
That's all right.
could be an inch an hour for a little burst.
Yeah, for one burst, though.
Yeah.
All right, so this was so I came up with a couple of posters that we can hang around the room.
Okay, so can we
Brighten it up.
just take a step back first?
Yeah,
'Cause
of course.
I want to be careful with this one, that I mean, we always want input from people, but the primary purpose of this is not so much input, it's information sharing, because
Yeah.
we're well along in the process on this one now. So this is what we've done, this was the process, this is what we decided and why.
Yep.
And then obviously, if you have feedback, great, but it's not like, hey, what are your blue sky ideas at this point? So I don't want to set wrong expectations with people, okay? So I just want to make sure everybody's in agreement with that, right? That's where we are? Okay, so we want to explain what we're doing and why, and then get feedback. But, okay, so, and if you don't mind, so I went through some of these things. So I think that about the open town meeting, representative town meeting, we didn't spend much time on that. There really wasn't much of a decision. I think we could just eliminate that if other people, I'm afraid it's going to confuse people if we put that up there.
I don't even think there's an appetite for representative town.
Yeah, no, so.
I just put it on there because
No.
I think it was one of the charges
Yes.
in the.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you
consider
put
it.
all this out here, because this
So-
is how you have the conversation, right? Because you
Right.
have something to just shoot at. I don't want you to take it,
Oh, no,
take it
I'm-
personal, okay?
I'm
But
not
I
taking it
just would
personally.
recommend we just not have that one if everybody else is in agreement.
I do agree. I think by putting it here in this level of detail, it implies that it's maybe still an issue or under debate, and here's the merits of each argument.
Okay,
So, and by the way, yeah, I think it was part of our charge. It also was part of our charge to determine whether we needed a charter, even, if you go back to our charge.
That's true. We just put
And
a question mark.
so we could put that as an issue, by the way, and we moved through that pretty quickly, I think. I was a little slower than maybe others, but that was even a question.
but we had some of that in the original one, right? Why are we doing a charter? So maybe we bring some of that back out for the people who haven't done it. That might be helpful. And then, okay, so what was your next page? Because mine are all out of order now, because I had all these things strewn all over the
Strong
place.
town manager.
Okay, so, again, I don't want to take over this conversation, so everybody's speaking, but to me, this issue isn't strong town manager, it's town manager versus TA, because we're talking about what's going on with Littleton. So it's not so much the theoretical, what is a strong town manager? It's like, we're proposing that we go to a town manager, and right now we have a TA. So what is the difference? What does that mean to Littleton? Right?
But I think we also have to include the strong part.
Why?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because,
That implies a different level of authority, which, and this is all from the newsletter article that went out. So it's trying to say, and this is what that means.
okay,
I would agree, like, if we went from town administrator to town manager, theoretically nothing changes. The change is the strong bit.
well, the change is what I guess, but in reality, what are we changing? What we're changing is, we have all these,
Reporting lines.
mostly the direct reports, right? The people that used to report to appointed boards or elected
Right.
boards are now appointed. That's really the big change, right?
Right.
So the elimination of
Which
the
is the
MOUs are now
strongness.
formal.
Okay, I mean, you can call it strong. I could just say, we could also just make the case that it's going from a TA to a TEM, and this is how we're defining the town manager. Okay, with strong, but I think, for me, we can have some of this information in here about what a strong town manager does and doesn't do, but what we really just want to say is, the town manager we're proposing, this is what will be different in Littleton versus what it was.
But I think in so many of our discussions, we talk about the strong part, that, to me, that's,
Okay, just be
What
careful,
the
because some
model
people, it
is.
means different things in terms of who hires the police chief and the fire chief and other things. So just saying strong,
So, and
that's why
that's
you got
actually
it in here, right?
one of
Okay.
the questions I have is, here's the direction. We put the strong town manager model and recommend, I can't even read my writing, that except for the town clerk, so this is all gotta be updated now.
Yep,
All department heads and employees are appointed and hired through the town manager or designee, and then I highlighted, this includes fire chief, police chief,
right.
among others.
But a strong town manager typically oversees day-to-day operations of the town. They already do that. implementing policies set by elected boards. They already do that.
Right.
This is not anything different than what we have with under TA.
Yeah,
So it's
but-
not a definition of a strong town
Yeah,
manager.
Yeah, so I can't say that I've spent time on this, but I think this is a big one that needs to, I'd like a little bit more time to review it and propose.
Okay, we're not gonna have another meeting before this, so we can, we have to,
That I found, are we not meeting again in February?
we already, this is our second meeting in February, because next week is school vacation week, so there's no meeting then.
Oh, I thought we had one more
Yeah,
before
it
then.
struck me as a
Yeah, it was
long
March.
time that we're not meeting.
No, we're not. So we need to get through some of this, and we can still take a few people off and do it, you know, finish it off
Yeah,
elsewhere. But that's why I
finalize it.
want to get through some of this tonight. What do we want this stuff to say?
Right.
Because to me, this is the same thing, and this one about preparing and managing the annual budget, well, they manage the annual budget, and he proposes a budget, but the FinCom is very much involved in this. They don't own the whole thing here. So,
Well, this has already gone out under the newsletter, so we can
okay,
cut it back.
yep. Well, yeah, we can always update things.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would like to nail it down soon so we can
Yeah, I agree.
get the
That-
final
well,
version.
that's why I
and
wanted to,
get it printed.
yeah. But do you see what I'm saying, though? A lot of these things we're saying, this is what a strong town manager does. Well, they're already doing that today, most of these things. So it's not any
But some
different.
people might not know.
So I just like, from a standpoint of our meeting here is the 28th, correct? Yeah, so today's the 10th.
Yep,
So there's a decent amount of time for some of us to get together in a subcommittee setting to refine and really work this one.
yep, yep.
I'd certainly be happy to participate, but I welcome others,
Okay, I
should
will
you
too.
have strong, feelings with regard to participating. I don't need to be involved in this one if there's several others to assist with finalizing this.
Yeah, I mean,
Otherwise, I'm a.
Charlotte's got her hand up.
Yeah, just to point out, I think we can tailor it for the different audiences, right? When I put together this for the newsletter, the intention was education, information education. Like, what is it? What isn't it? I didn't put together the original newsletter with a position, as Karen, you've added here, the direction.
Yep.
So I think that might be the difference here, that if we're distributing this and we want to distribute this more with a view of saying what will change with our decision,
Yep,
then I would highlight like the third bullet down in that first section, hiring, supervising, and evaluating department heads, for example, and then obviously really clarifying which of those positions would now report to the town manager. So just noting that I think the audience, the difference in the audience and the difference in the purpose would warrant like a little bit of a rework.
yep.
And this isn't a takeaway, this is literally gonna be like 3 things stuck on the wall
Yeah,
here.
no, I understand.
Right,
No, I understand. But but then that more important, that what are you trying to get across to people?
Well, that's why I put the direction down there.
Right.
So it's trying to give them the background, and then here's where the committee's
Yep.
leaning. Now, can we go back to police and fire? Is that,
My
did we
unders-
agree, or
sorry.
did we leave that up in the air?
Well, that's a good point, because we didn't review that tonight again. I think, I don't know that, I
Last
think,
minute,
hang on.
oh, sorry, I'm talking.
So
over
the
someone.
police
Sorry.
and fire, I mean, we've
Our
decided,
employees.
it's the same way we had said before, right? So the select board still hires, but they report to the town manager. That's what we had said all along.
So that's a big change in
Change
terms of who they report to.
Right,
It's a big change.
It's a big change, right?
but the still remains with the select board.
Right.
That's correct. But I don't want to.
No, right, it's a
We
big one.
know that going into the select board, I think we heard 4 out of the 5 saying, don't change that, and we are going ahead and making a recommendation different than what they've said.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Well, it was at least 3, in my opinion. But again, we weren't holding them accountable for take a vote amongst yourselves as you're here. But,
It's okay.
and that can be discussed in the joint
Right,
meeting that I think
absolutely.
we left last night believing they want a joint meeting with us, and we can bring that up for discussion.
Right.
So we want to include it here as reporting to the town manager, but somewhere we need to say appointed by the select board. So
Right.
we've got to
Right.
I
work that.
actually, so Rob, I want to thank you for doing that org chart.
Yep.
Rob showed me something from another town, and I was raving about it. And the reason I raved about it, because it captured so many little things on one piece of paper. And I'm worried that what the org chart doesn't currently capture, it captures who they're, how they come to be, but not who they report to. I don't think on your chart. And so I was wondering whether we could infuse that premise. I think that premise, they did it in a very, I don't know if I could have imagined how they did it. They captured both of those things, appointed or elected,
Yep,
and to whom do they report?
yeah. So that's not what I produced, but that is the one that I showed as something that led to me to do
Right,
this thing. So,
right.
yeah, so we could attempt in the subcommittee to meld them and come up with that version and see if that's something that
Yeah.
we're comfortable going forward with. I think there's time in order to try to do that, but it doesn't exist at this moment, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's great what you did. It's really a big step in the right direction.
Copy paste.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so we'll put that as a task for the subcommittee to work on, if everybody's okay with that.
Yep.
Does the library director now report to the town manager?
No.
The library director
No.
does not report?
Library is one of the carve-outs.
I'm just asking, I know who the hiring is, authority, I just didn't know the reporting, if they report up.
We did not do that. But the intention was, and there's wording that we did add saying, where was that we added last time? Remember saying that they have to meet with the town manager, basically, to say that they do there. So that's something we could consider, I guess, if we do it for the police and fire. We could certainly do that for library, and that would make sense, actually.
Yeah.
That would actually make good sense. Yeah, if we're doing it
A
for
nice
police and fire, we
clean-
should definitely do it for the library. We can talk about, yeah, so now we want to give something to them, so let's talk about it right now. So we did do a carve-out for the library director, right, for First Amendment rights and all those other things that the library director would continue to be hired by the library board rather than the town manager or town administrator. And then we just left it at that. We did not discuss that, should we also say, though, they are hired by the library board, but they report to the town administrator then, like the police and fire chief, like we've said for them.
So let me just throw out again, this conversation. I forget which charter it is, but there's one of them that I liked some wording, and what it had was the town manager will receive the approved goals for the employee director from that body in order to administer the responsibilities. And I found that to be an interesting twist of the wording, that in this case of the library director would, affirm a greater involvement of the Board of Library Trustees pertaining to the library director. But I apologize, I'm not going to be able to pull that one out to identify which charter it is. I just know that whether it's Hopkinton or something like that, there's somebody that's got a real nice phrasing that's previously been approved by the AG's office, et cetera, to go forward in a charter. Could throw that out.
We can find that. The other place it comes through is if they report to the town manager, then the town manager would do the review. And one of these, we talk about the review is based on previously agreed goals and blah, blah, blah.
And
right?
that's where I found
Right,
the
yeah, yeah.
language to be, okay, it's nice when that either elected or appointed body has some set of involvement with regard to policy decisions and goals. That kind of gives a strengthening, if you will, that requires, in essence, the town manager to be true to, that group, the multiple member body.
Okay.
We could look at that separately.
So, Mark, if the subcommittee now would go back and propose some wording here, well, we could just wait to get you the document till after our next meeting. The other thing what I was going to ask is there a way that I can send it out to everybody and say, are you okay with this? Without violating town meeting laws.
Ask for the.
So if the subcommittee would make some wording adjustments to the document, and I want the committee to say, yeah, they're okay with that before we give it to you guys.
You can't,
I can't do that in email, right?
Or are we trying to give it to the select board based on tonight?
No.
I didn't
Yes.
think we were, okay, that's where that's why I'm asking.
so,
So just as a draft, yeah, at this point. And then this is this interim, that was the whole discussion earlier. This was this interim, give us something, give us a month to read it, and then we're gonna get together and talk about it. But at this point, isn't that what we talked about last night at the meeting?
That's not what I presumed. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay?
so Betsy, you could do that, right? Because you could ask everyone for their feedback on the document, right? As long as it all came back to you and you didn't share the comments with everyone else, right?
Okay, then it's not a discussion.
Then it's not a discussion, as long as everyone replies to you with any comments that
All right.
they have on the document.
All right, well, let's go back to the other, because I'm sorry if I jumped ahead and I was assuming things that everybody else wasn't on board with.
No, I thought we were just gonna wait until you did that small group gets together and
Okay?
then we take a look at it. It doesn't make a difference to me whether it goes out now anyway. It just,
Okay, well, it's definitely gonna wait now. I mean, obviously, we have to make some changes because we just changed some of the things. So,
And I gotta be honest, I thought that we'd be passing along the select board after we had the next public input session as well, to try to give them a perspective or to, because I don't know what we're gonna hear.
okay. All right, we'll just wait till after the next meeting then. We'll just hold it off till the next meeting. Okay, we can do that.
I don't think anything's lost by doing
No,
that.
that's all right, that's fine. And then that makes all this cleaner. That actually makes my life easier too. So good. All right, and we gotta work on the public input section, so that would be other things that we do
Yes.
in the interim. Okay, can I ask on here, on this, well, we could do in the subcommittee too, but when I was looking at the org chart again, I know I'd looked at it before, Rob, or whomever. Under down here in the lower right where it says town manager, and it says appoints and manages department heads without consulting appointed multiple member bodies. And then,
Where you at?
Lower
Down
right
here.
corner of your chart, under town manager.
Yep. What's the question?
appoints and manages department heads without consulting appointed member bodies. And then underneath it, it says town department heads and department heads who support, I didn't understand what was going on here, I guess.
So you got two forks in that. You represented for department heads without
Yeah.
the town manager without consulting, and then with consulting.
Yeah, so we've just changed a pretty significant set of these boxes tonight, because the left, download is the town manager is going to appoint and manage via consultant with the elected, and that pertained to the park and rec director and the health director. We just moved those off of the table, so now the only one left is the town planner, as it's presented here.
Yeah, but I didn't understand why the other one says without consulting the appointed member.
Because up until what we discussed when I introduced the new concept of expanding and the town manager's, provision to
Okay.
expand it from elected to appointed, the words that we had previously had coming into tonight were, doesn't have to contact the appointed.
I would never publish something that says without consulting, because I
Okay,
would
but
expect them
that's
to
where we
consult.
were coming into
Okay,
tonight.
all right, that's great. All right, so we'll
that's
just
what I
need to
was
update this.
writing based on what we
Okay,
had
all right, so
previously.
then it's good to
had
look
our
at this and have the
language.
discussion then, yep. And then same with that, and I didn't understand that town departments who support an appointed. All right, well, we can do this if we do the subcommittee, we'll go through that
Yeah.
then too.
Yep.
All right, then what's next on your, so then you've got that chart, so we know about that one to update.
Yeah,
And what's next on your list?
and I've got, this handout.
Right, and we
which
just-
I didn't even know that we needed to print it, but I thought.
No,
it was
I did that in
useful.
case you weren't, Kevin did that because, in case you weren't
Yeah.
here, so we could get started, so that's
No, but
okay.
as far as the
Oh.
public forum, I don't know whether we need a big thing of it or just, I don't know. I thought it was useful.
No, I think it's useful to show people, these are the kind of things we talked about and so on. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that, it was a checkbox that we
Right.
did all of these things, but these are the kind of things that we looked at. I think that's helpful for people to understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then,
Can I go back on the
Yeah.
elected boards and commissions slide?
This was before tonight.
Got it.
yeah, absolutely,
Right.
totally.
My question or thought for consideration is, I was wondering if another column, current, what current, you're saying what we're recommending in the rightmost column? Would we, to one column to the left, put
Well,
current?
these are all elected.
Oh, yeah, what am I saying? They're
And
all
then-
elected.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yep, never mind.
that's all right. It's a busy chart.
There's a lot
yeah.
going on here.
Well, it's, yeah, if I read the name of the chart.
That's okay.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Okay, and so then this, and then when your other document that you had about the blurb to share and so on,
Oh, that was for the newsletter, which
Right.
we never did.
Okay.
I just put in the.
okay, because this is where I got into the focus on sharing info rather than we need your input.
Yep. Yep, but I did come up with a form just to collect any comments or questions.
Yeah, but even that, I would, personally, I would just leave it open. I wouldn't put these boxes, I would just say
Okay.
any, and just leave it totally open.
Okay, that's easy.
And then, yeah, definitely do that so people can leave whatever they're thinking about. Okay, all right, I'm good with that. So now, is there anybody else who's interested in being on this subcommittee to talk about what's going to be on the February 28th, how we're going to approach this, what we're going to have and so on? We've got Rob, Karen, me, anybody else? You don't have to, just asking. Okay,
I'm hesitating because I have some questions about it, but I'm worried with the work on the
I know.
subcommittee
I know,
and work
I
and
know.
stuff. So I can share some of my thoughts are about the flow of the meeting.
It's not a meeting. It's an open house.
Yeah.
So the
So
idea
I
would
w-
be,
yeah.
this is what I'm envisioning, people come in, we ask them to write their name down, so we know how many people came in. And then we'll either have like easels or stick stuff on the whiteboard and, so little stations, and then we can kind of walk them around, or, like a science fair kind of thing.
Mhm.
Here are the different topics, do you have
Yeah.
any questions, what are you thinking about? Just like really casual.
If I was coming to this meeting,
open
I
house.
might appreciate, if I wasn't
And then
doing
you
what
can
I'm
have
doing,
coffee and
I might,
munchkin.
I would expect that most people will come at the start of the meeting, who are interested in coming to the meeting, is my sense. And I'm wondering should there be any update, any introductory comments, any background, any indication where we're headed, to tee things up? Or is it just sort of,
It's a
like a-
walk, it's
like a wake.
it's a
You-
drop-in, it's an
All right.
open house, there's no formal presentation.
So I'm good with that. And to Kevin's point about arrival,
Yeah, we'll be.
I almost think, I agree with the login, all that. I almost think it'd be appropriate to ask them, why are you here? What would you like,
That's a great, yeah,
what would you like to accomplish by your
Yeah.
being here? So that we can make certain that we fulfill their expectation or
Right.
hear their expectation. And that would then lead to
yeah.
any
Oh, go
course,
to
et cetera,
this.
that might play out.
we should kind of like have an elevator pitch kind of thing on a piece of paper probably, Kevin, to your point, right, I think?
to kick the meeting off?
Well, there is
It's
no
not a
meeting,
meeting.
but if somebody walks in and it's to
You can
kick
call it
off.
what you want, it's a meeting. It's going to be
But see-
posted, in
see,
fact, it's going to be
that's
posted as a
not-
meeting.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm not trying to present to them in any way. I'm trying to listen to them of, you made a conscious decision to come here because we put out a notice saying we're gonna be hanging around from 10 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanna know what you want.
Right.
As opposed, I don't wanna push on our ideas, to them. I wanna hear what they have to say.
But we are on the posters saying
The
this is the
posters, the
direction.
posters we provide, and I think they're
Here's the
wonderful.
direction we're going.
I think they're wonderful aids, and to have it at the
Yeah.
ready to,
Yeah.
we're asserting this is what we are. But if they don't want,
Oops.
they don't care about that aspect of it,
Right.
we don't need to push them. I wanna,
that's true.
I want
Okay,
them
that's
to,
fine.
I
But
want
if they
them to
say,
lead us.
I just heard about charter, I don't know anything.
Yeah,
I
then,
want to have something to say.
then that's different.
This is where we
Yeah,
are.
Then that's very
Okay.
responsive, then that's
Okay.
very
Gotcha.
responsive.
Gotcha, okay, we're good with that.
Yeah, and that's probably gonna be the main question, what is, yeah.
You think?
what's the
But you never
charter?
know. Okay, all right, so three of us then, and we'll figure out a time. And Charlotte?
Let's get her hand up.
Got your hand up, Charlotte?
Yeah, I was just going to offer, I mean, with school vacation, I'm not sure how much in-person time I can commit, but if you guys want to task me with something, I'm happy to try to fill in any gaps in the lead up to the meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Could I ask one last, or express one last thought about one of the exhibits? It says, what kind of town government do you want for Littleton? I'm wondering if that's along the lines, Betsy, of, aren't we beyond aren't we?
Yeah, but this is what, this is
That
done.
was the flyer that went out.
Oh, it's already gone
gone
out?
out.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Kevin
big deal.
put it on.
Okay,
It's good.
cool.
Is it there? Did you see
I
it?
don't know. I didn't
Oh.
see it.
Maybe I'll swing by on the way home and see if
Sure
it's there.
it's still up.
Okay. We don't have any minutes. We're going to have those next time.
Yeah, but we,
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
sorry to be
No,
the
no,
skunk,
that's okay.
but we had administrative organization weeks ago. We've never discussed it.
Nope, we're not, it's still on the list, but we're not going to do it tonight. We'll do it next time, and hopefully we'll have Collins on with us if we need to.
Okay, so just wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah, no, it was
clarify,
just-
because a moment ago, we were talking about moving this to select board. So
And-
we've
and-
got to get through this.
Well, we don't have to. We can give it to them without it. We'll have to decide.
Okay.
We can give it to
All
them
right,
without it.
All right, and then I just want to acknowledge and appreciate Kyle for doing the audit work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that I view as, we need to have discussion of that item as to whether or not audits, et cetera, should be, stated as we've not covered this one as either, so I think,
But it's in the back part of the charter now, right? We have it in here. Didn't we move it back to another section?
we have it in here, but it's just the subcommittee that's discussed it. I don't think the full committee has discussed it at all. And then Kyle did this additional work that we've not yet discussed, which I thought was very helpful and appreciate what it is. So I'm just trying to say, it's not, we've never deferred to the subcommittee to make decisions of such magnitude as what I think this is.
My understanding was that we took that thing, we put it under general provisions with the understanding that we would talk about that when we got to that part of the charter.
Okay.
Am I wrong? But that's,
No, I
That's my
think that's fine. So you're helping with the sequencing
yes.
of
So
what
I'm
you're
not
thinking.
trying to eliminate, we just
No,
moved it
no, no.
further back. We haven't gotten there
So
yet.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
good with that.
But that's why we put it in here, so that we wouldn't lose it, Rob. So it's actually in here. At least some wording to that effect.
All right.
And this is talking about, audit results and reviews completed by blah, blah, blah.
I'm good with that.
Okay? Okay, all right, good. Want to make sure. I'm not trying to,
I wouldn't accuse you.
okay, no, okay.
I wouldn't
good.
accuse you.
But I could have missed it, so it's good you bring it up. Okay. Anything else we can talk about before we get Alan's motion? No? All right.
Should we put that in the charter?
Must be.
A standing thing?
Standing committee.
There'll be, under the organizational things, we'll have, in addition to what's a quorum and what's majority vote, we'll have the Ellen motion to
The
conclude all
Ellen.
meetings.
Move we adjourn, Madam Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Aye, Charlotte.
Thank you, everybody.